Can this action figure of Scarlett Bordeaux in a catsuit pass as a live-action version of this? Stick around and find out. Welcome to 5 Points of Articulation, where I review action figures and then articulate 5 points to help you decide if you want to add that figure to your collection. The 5 points I discuss are packaging, presentation, posability, playability, and price. I'm Jason, and if you enjoy my content, please like, share, subscribe, do all the YouTube rigmarole. Full disclosure, I don't follow wrestling and I don't know anything about Scarlett herself. I'm just trying to figure out if this figure would make a good black cat for my live-action Spider-Man collection. Starting off with the packaging, and we've got a nice simple blister card, WWE logo up top. As we can see, this is series 120, which absolutely blows my mind. Nice picture of Scarlett on the side. Already I'm seeing that the likeness looks pretty good. We can also see that this is her first time in the line, which after 120 series is kind of surprising. Name at the bottom and Mattel in the corner. And on the back, we see the other wrestlers in the wave. There's Shawn Michaels, Edge, Pete Dunne, and Karrion Kross. He says as if he knows who these people are. With all the fancy boxes I look at, it's kind of refreshing as a longtime collector to look at a simple blister card. And you know what? It's absolutely fine. For packaging, I'm giving Scarlett 1 whole point. Moving on to presentation, and the statuesque Scarlett stands at about 6.5 inches from the top, and the head sculpt is absolutely spot on. I'm assuming that they use some kind of facial scan technology, and of course the details have been digitally printed on. Honestly, I think this is as good as any Hasbro MCU figure. And of course, that stark white hair makes her perfect for a live-action Felicia Hardy. I'm not particularly crazy about this dangly bit though. Moving on down, however, and the reason why we're talking about this figure is the body. Specifically, her costume. If I collected wrestling figures, I'm sure I'd be able to tell you that there's a lot of reuse here, but I honestly don't know. The paintwork on the collar is a little bit smudgy. I do appreciate the wrinkles in the torso though, so that it looks like she's actually wearing a costume instead of just having a painted on black body. That said, the fact that she has a belly button's kind of weird. I'm guessing it's so that they can paint different tops up here, but leave the midriff bare. Remember, it's all about the reuse. While we're down here though, they did a good job on her abs, and also the musculature on her arms. Moving on down, and she's even wearing gloves with claws. Moving even further down, she has some pretty cool thigh-high boots. Not really sure why they put the thigh cut here and not here though, and even though the rest of the figure is kind of plain, there is some pretty decent stitch working on them. Flipping her around, and here she is from the back. The real-life costume that Scarlett wore was a glossier, more PVC material, and while it's unfortunate that the figure isn't more accurate, I really appreciate the matte finish that they went with. For presentation, I'm giving Scarlett 1 whole point. Moving on to posability, and Scarlett's head's on a dumbbell joint. No up and down because of her hair, but you can turn it side to side. Moving on down, she's got swivel hinge shoulders that raise up a little bit over 90 degrees. She's got single jointed swivel hinge elbows and a swivel in the wrist. Unfortunately, no hinge. Moving on down, she has a waist swivel, and this is why they usually give female characters a diaphragm joint. Below the waist, she has ball jointed hips. They kick out this far, and pretty decent spread. As I've already said, she has a thigh cut, single jointed knees that bend 90 degrees. She also has ankle hinge, but sadly no swivel or pivot. She's definitely not as articulated as a Marvel Legend, but surprisingly more posable than I was expecting for a $10 figure. The thigh cut and ankle hinge, for example. If she was a $20 plus figure, I'd be pretty unhappy, but at this price, for posability, I'm definitely giving this Scarlett 1 whole point. Moving on to playability, and Scarlett doesn't come with any accessories, but that's not what we're here for. We're here to see how well this wrestler plays with others. Here she is with the WWE Elite Hollywood version of John Cena. This is the only other wrestling figure that I own. As for why I have this figure, that'll become clear a little bit later. But that's not why you clicked this video. You want to see how well this Scarlett can pass as a live-action Felicia Hardy. For a Black Cat comparison, here she is with the original Toy Biz, the Hasbro Marvel Legend, and the Marvel Select. She obviously doesn't have a domino mask, or a collar, or a plunging neckline, or some white fur trim. But come on. If somebody showed you this, and told you that it was a live-action movie version of this, you'd probably believe them, and hopefully we can all agree that it's a million times better than this. But hey, it's not like there haven't been more buttoned-down tactical versions of her in the past. And on that subject, here she is with the Gameverse Advanced Suit Spider-Man from the PS4 game. For a live-action Spider-Man comparison, here she is with the Toy Biz Toby, and the Marvel Legends Andrew and Tom. Toby and Andrew are definitely shorter, but I would argue that modern Marvel Legends are a bit bigger, so if they're ever remade, the new ones would definitely scale better. The same thing can be said for the villains. And speaking of villains, remember that John Cena figure from earlier? I use its head for a kinda sorta Thomas Hayden Church Sandman. It might not stand under close scrutiny, but at basic eye level on a shelf, I'm happy. But of course, if I want to make it a permanent transformation, I'm gonna have to paint that neck. That said, if you want to do this custom, just be warned find that the peg hole does not fit and does have to be drilled out. For a comparison to a couple of other MCU figures, here she is with Iron Man Mark III and Natasha Romanoff from The Winter Soldier. Even if you didn't want to use her as a Black Cat, you could probably pull her off as a rogue Black Widow. Since she's built like a lady wrestler, here she is with Captain Carter. The 3D face printing honestly looks fairly comparable. For a video game comparison, here she is with Miles Morales. For a comic comparison, here she is with the retro card Spider-Man. For a Catwoman comparison, here she is with the DC Designer Series Greg Capullo version. For a relative scale comparison, here she is with Pete the Spidey and the Spectacular Spider-Man. And as always, here she is with Stealth Iron Man. So hey, do you think I have a chance? Sorry, I don't date short guys. How about now? She might not have come with any accessories of her own, but that's alright. I picked up this figure for one reason and one reason only, to mix and match with my live-action Spider-Man collection. If you play with posing and perspective, not only does she blend in well, she honestly looks like she belongs there. And hey, it's not like Tom Holland has a problem being the short one in a relationship. I'm not saying that Scarlett should play her in the movie, but having a love interest for Peter who is so different from Zendaya would set up a good visual contrast. For playability, I'm giving Scarlett 1 whole point. This leaves us with nothing left to discuss but the price. I found this Scarlett at Target for only $9.99. For some perspective, I picked up this Storm at the exact same time and it cost the exact same price. And don't even get me started on these $18 McFarlane Toys Retro Batman figures that are not only smaller but come with less articulation. If you're a wrestling fan, this is an awesome value, and if you're a fan of Scarlett, this figure definitely adds a unique look to your collection. I, of course, got this figure with one purpose in mind, and for that purpose, this figure totally works for me. Hopefully, this video has helped you figure out if it'll work for you. For price, I'm giving Scarlett 1 whole point for a grand total of 5 out of 5. And now if they could just make a figure of that one time she dressed up as Harley Quinn. To see another John Cena head swap, check out my video on the retro card Sandman, or click here to see the Armadillo Wave Game Reverse Miles Morales. Do you collect wrestling figures? If so, are there wrestlers that you're able to slip into your comic book collection? Sound off and tell me about them in the comments below. I'll be back again real soon, but until then, play nice and have fun.